Today class, our lesson in science focus on the motion of an object. At the end of the lesson, you will able to describe the motion of an object by tracing and measuring its change in position, distance traveled over a period of time. This is for our week 1, quarter 3. Okay, so look at this picture. We have the figure 1 and figure 2. Observe figure 1 and figure 2. In which figure the car has moved. So these are the questions. Number 1. Is there a change in position of the car in figure 2? Look at the picture. Is there a change in position? So the answer is yes. Number 2. What does the change in position of the car in figure 2 mean? Number 3. How do we know the car has moved? How do you know that the car was moving? Number 4. What is your basis in describing the car's motion? Okay, let us answer this to the next slides. So you know that something has moved because you can see that it has changed in position. So if the object changes in position, that means that the object is moving. So position is the location of an object. Take note, position is the location of an object. It is an object distance and direction from a reference point. So what is a reference point? A reference point, also called frame of reference, is the starting point you choose to describe where the object is. The car in the first activity, has changed position when it was a meter away from the trees. This process of changing an object's position is called motion. So what is the reference point of the car? According to this activity, the reference point of the car is the trees or are the trees. So, how do we know that the car is moving? Because the car changed in position because it was a meter away from the trees in the figure 2. So if there's a changing of object's position, it is called motion. So look at this picture. So we have here a reference point and we see that the car is moving with the use of the reference point. So every meters away from the reference point, it tells that the car is moving. We have types of motion. So number 1 is the rectilinear motion, the movement of an object along a straight line. Number 2 is the circular motion, the movement of an object around a fixed point such that its distance from the center remains the same. Number 3, periodic motion, the motion that repeats itself after definite time intervals. Number 4, rolling motion, the motion which is a combination of rectilinear motion and the circular motion. Look at this picture. This is the example of rectilinear motion, the movement of an object along a straight line. So, if the object moves along the straight line, it is called a rectilinear motion. Understand? Next is the circular motion. Look at the picture. The car is moving on a circular direction. The movement of an object around a fixed point such that its distance from the center remains the same. That is a circular motion. Next is the periodic motion. The motion that repeats itself after definite time intervals. So it's also like a circular motion, but there is a repeat. There is a definite time intervals. Like the movement of the earth around the sun. It is an example of periodic motion. The last one is the rolling motion. The motion which is a combination of rectilinear motion and circular motion, like the rolling ball. The ball is moving on the straight line and the ball is moving in a circular motion. It is a combination of two, the rectilinear motion and the circular motion. So that is a rolling motion. So again, what are the types of motion? The first one is the rectilinear motion. The second one is the circular motion. And the third one is the periodic motion. And the last one is the rolling motion. So many things around us can move. Movement is also called motion. So motion is a movement from one position to another. Motion can be fast or slow. This property is called speed. So take note that when there is a movement, there is a motion. So if the motion is fast or is slow, that is called speed. So motion can be back and forth, up or down, round in a circles, straight in a zigzag. So we can change the speed in our motion too. We can go faster or slower. So that is the speed. Everything needs a push or a pull to get it moving. This push and pull is called force. A force can also slow something down or get it to change position. Friction can also slow something down. Friction is the force that occurs in rubbing two objects against each other, and it slows down the moving object. So we have here so many words to remember. Number one is the motion. Motion is the movement from one position to another. Take note that the word movement, there is a motion. If the motion can be fast or slow, that is a speed. If there is a push and pull, that is called a force. And the force can stop or slow down the motion, but also the friction can also slow something down, because the friction is the force that occurs in rubbing two objects against each other, and it slows down the moving object. So look at this picture. So there is a push and pull. So if there is a push and pull, there is a force applied. Did you understand? If there is a force applied, So there is also a friction. So the friction acts on the surface between two rubbing objects. Like for example, this one. So the chair and the floor. So the friction acts between the chair and the floor. So ang ibig sabihin, pag sinabi nating friction, siya yung pumipigil sa paggalaw. So, kapag rough yung surface, pag sinabi nating rough yung surface, there is a greater friction. Ibig sabihin, malakas yung pagpipigil sa paggalaw. Nahihirapan kang itulak. Unlike when the surface is smooth. Or like for example, this one. So, rough yung kanyang surface. So, pag nagtutulak tayo sa rough surface ng bagay, mahirap siyang itulak. Dahil ang friction ay greater o malakas ang friction. Kapag naman nagtutulak tayo ng bagay sa madulas na bagay, katulad ng kunyari ng tiles, ang friction ay lesser or less friction. So, tandaan natin that friction can resist the motion of an object. So, friction is helpful. Like for example, kung madulas yung sahig o madulas yung ating dadaanan, nakakatulong yung friction para mapigilan na huwag tayong madulas. Like kung magsusuot tayo ng mga tsinelas na mayroong mga spikes. So, that is a friction. Sana'y naintindihan. So, we have also a gravity. Gravity is a force which pulls object towards the center of the earth. Every object has gravity force. The amount of pulling force depends on the mass of the object and their distance from each other. Objects with a larger mass have a larger force. Objects with a small mass have a smaller force. So, example natin, the falling apple. So, lahat daw ng object, meron siyang gravity force. Ano yung gravity force? The amount of pulling force. Siya yung humihila sa atin pababa. Halimbawa, nandun sa taas, katulad ng apple na nasa puno. Pag siya ay hinog na o kumalas dun sa sanga, babagsak yan sa lupa. Kaya lahat ng nasa itaas ay bumabagsak o hinihila pababa because of the gravity. So, yun yung gravity. Ano sabi dun sa gravity? Object with a larger mass have a larger force. Mas malaki yung object, mas malakas yung kanyang force ng paghila. While the objects with a small mass have a smaller force. Maliit lang. Katulad for example ng ating orbits, yung sa sun. Yung sun, malaki siya. So, the planets around the sun, meron tong gravity. Kaya hindi nawawala sa pag-ikot yung mga planets because of gravity. So, you can move an object by pushing and pulling it. So, tandaan natin ano nga yung push and pull? That is a force. So, syempre, pag nag-apply tayo ng force, ano yung force? Push and pull sa object, makakagalaw ang object. Sa maliwanag yung push and pull. Alam naman natin pag sinabing push, di ba? Pag sinabing push, tulak. Pag sinabing pull, hila. You can increase the speed of the moving object by decreasing the friction. Para daw bumilis yung paggalaw ng isang object, kailangan bawasan natin ang friction. Or decrease the speed, bawasan naman natin ang bilis, kailangan natin ng increasing friction. Paano ang halimbawa nun? Katulad halimbawa ng bisikleta. Pag tumakbo ang bisikleta dun sa rough road o dun sa batuhan na bato, mabagal siya kesa dun sa bisikleta na tumatakbo dun sa cemented road o sa sementadong daan. Dahil malakas ang friction dun sa batuhan na daan kaysa dun sa sementadong daan. So, yun yung ating friction. Tatandaan natin, pag sinabing friction, ito yung pumipigil sa paggalaw ng isang bagay. It resists or stop the motion of an object. Next, the velocity. The velocity of an object is the rate of change of its position with respect to a frame of reference and is a function of time. So, velocity is equivalent to specification of an object's speed and direction of motion. So, when we say velocity, there is a rate of change, rate of motion. Pag sinabi natin rate of motion, that is the speed. But, the velocity is not only the speed. There is the speed and direction. Halimbawa, ano ang bilis niya? 60 km per hour. Speed lang yun. Pag sinabi natin 60 km per hour. Pero pag nilagyan natin to the north, may direction, that is velocity. So, malinaw. Pagtandaan natin, pag speed lang, merong kilometer per hour. Pero pag may direction, that is velocity. When an object is in equilibrium, that is, it is not moving with changing speed. The net force acting on it is balance. So, balance siya, hindi siya gumagalaw. Pag hindi siya gumagalaw, yung object, the object is in balance. When an object is moving with changing speed, the net force on it is unbalanced. For example, when an apple falls from the tree, an unbalanced force equal to its weight is acting on the apple. So, ibig sabihin, dun sa force, meron tayong balanced force and unbalanced force. Pag balanced force, there is no movement. Pag unbalanced yung force, there is a movement. When something is moving, you often ask how fast it is going or what its speed is. Speed is a concept in motion, which is the rate at which an object covers distance. You can find the speed of an object if you know the distance traveled by the object and the time taken by the object to travel this distance. You can use the formula to find the speed of an object. So, what is the formula? Speed is equals to distance divided by time. So, makukuha daw natin yung speed pag alam natin yung distance, yung layo. And alam natin yung time traveled niya dun sa distance na yon. So, this is the example on how to get the speed. A jeepney runs for 3 hours to cover a 300-kilometer distance. What is its speed? So, the formula is speed equals to distance divided by time. So, hanapin natin yung distance. Ano ba yung distance dito? Ang layo daw ay 300 kilometer. Ilagay mo dyan. Ang time niya ay 3 hours. So, 3 hours ang kanyang time. So, ang tanong, what is the speed? Sabi sa formula, speed is equals to distance divided by time. So, speed is equals to 300 kilometer divided by 3 hours. So, anong gagawin? Divide natin yung 300 sa 3. 300 divided by 3 is equal to 100. Huwag kakalimutan ang unit. Ang unit natin ay kilometer per hour. Kaya dapat ay ilalagay natin. So, ang sagot natin dito ay letter C. So, mabilis lang kuhain kung paano ang speed. So, we have appropriate tools for measuring distance. So, in science, distance should always be exact, measured accurately, and based on a standard unit of measurement. So, dapat naka-standard unit of measurement tayo. Dapat exact, accurate, So, scientifically, distance should be measured by using measuring tools. So, ano-ano ba yung mga measuring tools natin? Like ruler, meter stick, tape measure, measuring wheel, like this one, and the ultrasonic distance. So, yan ang mga tools na dapat natin gamitin to have a standard unit of measurement. So, the metric system of measurement. The metric system is the world standard for measurement. It is used by scientists throughout the world. Having a standard unit of measure makes it easier for a scientist and other people to understand each other's data. Using different units of measurement may lead to misunderstanding and confusion among people. Pag gumamit tayo ng iba't ibang units, nakakalito. So, dapat ang kailangan natin lang yung metric system. So, in the metric system, the standard unit of measure used for distance or length is meter. Pag distance, ang pag-uusapan, ang ginagamit natin ay meter. You just add the prefix kilo when you are referring to distance is quite far. Pag malayo, yung meter, lalagyan natin ng kilometer. Prefix like deci, centi, and milli are used if the length is quite short. So, pag naman maikli, pwede tayong deci, centimeter, millimeter. So, yun yung ating panlagay pag maikli lang yung ating length. Pero pag yung length ay mahaba, nilalagyan natin ng kilometer, kilo, tapos meter. So, yun yung ating standard. The standard unit of measure. Tandaan, that is meter. So, again, tatandaan natin ito. Motion is the change in an object's position. So, if there is a change in position, there is a motion. If there is a movement, there is a motion. Position is the place where you are. An object's position is described by its distance and direction from the reference point. So, reference point, also called frame of reference, is the starting point you choose to describe where an object is. The types of motion are rectilinear motion, circular motion, periodic motion, and the rolling motion. Force is applied to make anything move. Ano yung force na yon? Force is a push or a pull. Friction is the force that occurs in rubbing two objects against each other, and it slows down the moving object. So, tandaan natin yung friction, It slows down the moving object or retard and resist the motion. Pinipigilan ang paggalaw. So, gravity is a force which pull objects towards the center of the earth. So, speed is the distance an object moves in a certain amount of time. So, speed. Speed is equal to distance divided by time. And the velocity. Velocity is the rate of motion with a direction or the speed with direction. So, yan lang ang tatandaan natin.